She stood in the doorway of his penthouse, watching the loneliest millionaire in New York stare into the winter night like a man who'd forgotten how to feel. And when she opened her mouth to speak, she had no idea those 5 simple words would change both their lives forever.
My family would
Before we
love
dive
to have
in,
you for Christmas
please
dinner if
subscribe
you'd like
to
to
our
join
channel
us.
and hit that notification bell. And I'd love to know, drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from right now. I want to see just how
Come
far
in,
this
Alexander.
incredible story
We've been
travels.
waiting for you.
Now, let's begin. Are you really spending Christmas here alone? The question hung in the air like snowflakes suspended in time. Sophia Martinez stood frozen at the entrance.
I've never
Her
seen you
worn
smile
coat
that
draped
much in
over
one
one
night.
arm, a dish towel
Your
still
family,
in her
it felt
hand.
like home.
Her shift
in a way
had
I didn't
ended.
know I was missing.
The other
Do
housekeepers
you really
had
think
already
we can
rushed
do
home
this?
to their
We're
families.
not alone anymore,
But something
Sophia.
made Sophia
We'll
turn
build this
back.
together.
There he
Our
was,
sweet home cafe.
Alexander
Our new life.
Hartwell, the man whose name graced Forbes lists but whose face never smiled in photographs. He stood motionless before floor-to-ceiling windows, his silhouette sharp against Manhattan's glittering chaos. In his hand, a crystal glass caught the light, red wine swirling like captured fire. He wore a suit that probably cost more than her car, every line perfect. But standing in that cavernous space, he looked less like a man and more like a museum exhibit. Beautiful, untouchable, completely alone. Apparently so, Alexander replied without turning, his voice smooth and detached. Is that a problem, Miss Martinez? Sophia's eyebrows lifted. She adjusted her purse strap, her calloused hands a stark contrast to the marble and gold surrounding her. Not for me, she said, her voice steady and warm. But it seems like a pretty big problem for you. He turned slowly, his steel-gray eyes meeting hers with a look that usually made people stammer. But Sophia didn't flinch. She'd cleaned homes of New York's elite for 7 years. She'd seen behind the curtains. I don't need company to celebrate the holidays, Alexander said, his tone clipped. I have everything I need. Do you? Sophia glanced around, her gaze taking in pristine surfaces, untouched decorations, oppressive silence. This silence feels like it's swallowing you whole. His jaw tightened. No one spoke to him this way. Not executives, not business partners, not staff. But this housekeeper, with kind eyes and flower stains on her sleeves, stood there looking at him like he was just a person. A lonely person. Sophia took a breath. I'm heading to dinner with my family. 20 minutes from here. If you want to come, there's still time. Alexander stared at her, caught between disbelief and longing. You're inviting me to Christmas dinner. That's right. She shrugged. Christmas is about being with people, not crystal glasses. Her response hit him like a physical blow. In 42 years, no one had offered Alexander something without wanting something back. No angle. Just a human invitation. He reached for his usual armor. Do you invite all your employers to family dinners? Or am I special? Only the ones who look so sad they've forgotten they deserve not to be. Her smile was warm, genuine. So, are you coming or not? Miss Martinez, I appreciate the gesture, but it wouldn't be appropriate. And eating alone in a place the size of a stadium is, she laughed warmly. Come on, Mr. Hartwell. There's nothing wrong with being human. I hear it's quite nice. The boldness left him speechless. Alexander looked at his wine, then at the city where millions gathered with loved ones. He could buy anything. Anything except what Sophia offered. Dinner's at 7, she said, keys jingling. The yellow house on Maple Street in Brooklyn, with the crooked wreath. My nephew made it. He's enthusiastic, but not accurate with measurements. She paused at the elevator. We're having my grandmother's tamales, tres leches cake, and 17 people in a living room designed for 8. It's loud, chaotic, and someone will spill something, but it's real. And I think you could use some real right now. The elevator doors closed, leaving Alexander alone with echoes. He stood there for 15 minutes, sat down, took another sip of wine that tasted bitter, tried to convince himself he was fine, but Sophia's face kept appearing. Those warm eyes, that laugh. Christmas is about being with people. At 6:30, Alexander grabbed his coat. This is insane, he muttered, heading to the garage. His hands shook as he started the car. The GPS led him through snow-dusted streets, each mile taking him from his world toward something terrifying. Authenticity. He sat in the parked car for 5 minutes, staring at the modest yellow house. Paper snowflakes decorated windows. Christmas lights blinked cheerfully. Through curtains, movement and laughter. This was a mistake. He didn't belong here. He should leave. But then the door opened. A little boy ran out for a forgotten toy, and warmth spilled into the night. The boy waved at the strange car before running back inside. And that simple gesture broke something in Alexander's chest. He turned off the engine. His hand reached for the door. This is insane, he thought. But he was already walking up the path. He knocked. Music and laughter answered. The door swung open. Sophia, hair down, wearing a red apron covered in flour, eyes lighting up. Mr. Hartwell. She laughed. I knew you couldn't resist my grandmother's cooking. Alexander stood there, overdressed, out of place, unprepared. I thought I'd take you up on your offer, if it still stands. Of course. Sophia gestured him inside. Come in before you freeze. Fair warning, total chaos. But the good kind. He stepped across the threshold. Warmth hit him immediately. Not just heat, but something deeper. Spices and chocolate. Children laughing. Adults debating. A grandmother singing off-key. Mismatched furniture covered in blankets. A tilted Christmas tree with homemade ornaments. Photos covering walls. Nothing here cost much. But everything mattered. This is different, Alexander murmured. Around here, we call this home. Sophia hung his coat next to hers. Come on, let me introduce you before my grandmother starts the Inquisition. In the living room, conversation stopped for 3 seconds before Sophia's grandmother, tiny but fierce, pointed a wooden spoon at him. You're the millionaire, the one who lives in the sky. Abuela, be nice, Sophia laughed. I'm always nice. Just honest. The old woman studied him with eyes that had seen 75 years of people. You hungry? Yes, ma'am. Starving. She nodded, satisfied. Good. Hungry people are honest. Sit. Eat. Then we see if you're worth my granddaughter's kindness. Alexander was swept into family dinner. He was handed a plate piled high, seated between a teenager asking about stocks and a little girl showing him her rock collection because you look like you need pretty things. He watched Sophia move through the room, serving food, settling arguments, laughing, her face glowing. She caught his eye and mouthed, You okay? He nodded. And meant it. Dinner blurred into stories. Sophia's uncle explaining Met's theories, her nephew demonstrating karate, her grandmother insisting on seconds. Alexander found himself laughing at a story about 12-year-old Sophia accidentally dyeing the cat orange. It was supposed to be a glow-in-the-dark science project, Sophia explained, cheeks pink. Poor Mr. Whiskers glowed orange for 3 months. The neighbors thought we'd summoned something demonic. You were terrible at following instructions, her cousin grinned. Remember the toaster? The fire department called it a concerning electrical event. I was trying to help. Sophia laughed, wiping her eyes. Alexander watched her shine, surrounded by people who loved her. How had he missed this? How had he reduced her to just a name on payroll? At midnight, Sophia's grandmother raised her cider. To family, to love, to moments that remind us why we're alive. To family, everyone echoed. Alexander's voice joined them. Sophia stood beside him, close. She looked up, eyes asking a question. He smiled, real and unguarded. She smiled back, the kind that makes you believe in magic. Outside, snow fell. Inside, Alexander Hartwell sat surrounded by people who wanted nothing except his presence. Something cracked open in his chest, not breaking, blooming. He didn't know this moment split his life into before and after. Before Sophia. Before understanding home wasn't a penthouse. Before learning the bravest thing is letting someone see you. All of you. Sophia's nephew tugged Alexander's sleeve. Hey, mister, want to see my telescope? We can see stars if the clouds go away. Alexander looked at Sophia, who nodded. Sure, I'd like that. As he followed the boy upstairs, past photos and drawings taped to walls, Alexander felt something he hadn't felt since childhood. Hope, and the scary, wonderful sensation that his controlled life was about to become beautifully out of control. Downstairs, Sophia's grandmother winked. That one is going to fall so hard. Abuela. Stop, Sophia whispered, blushing. I'm just saying what I see. A man who just remembered how to be human. Thanks to you, Miha. Sophia looked upstairs where Alexander's voice asked about constellations, her nephew's excited answers filling space. Her heart fluttered and ached. She'd just started something unstoppable. A chain reaction of moments building into a lifetime. Because she'd seen a lonely man and done the simplest, bravest thing. She'd invited him to be human with her. The next morning, Alexander woke on Sophia's couch, neck stiff, suit wrinkled, but he'd slept better than in years. Coffee and baking smells pulled him from sleep. Good morning, Mr. Executive. Sophia's voice called from the kitchen. Did you survive the common folks' couch? Alexander smiled, running a hand through messy hair. I survived. My back might sue you. Sophia appeared, wearing pajamas and a cat-covered apron. You slept like a baby. I heard you snoring. I do not snore, he said, offended. You absolutely do. Loudly. She grinned. But aristocratic snoring. Very proper. Alexander couldn't hold back a laugh. Coffee? Of course. She poured coffee. Their fingers touched, that spark of something beginning. He sat at the small table, watching her cook with easy confidence. You don't have to stay, Sophia said, not looking at him. I'm sure you have important things to do. I have nowhere I'd rather be, Alexander said quietly. She turned, spatula in hand. You mean that? I do. Good, because I was hoping you'd stay for breakfast. And maybe we could talk. Really talk. No boss-employee stuff. Alexander's heart raced. Every instinct said retreat. But Sophia smiled, and he wanted to be braver. I'd like that very much. They talked as morning sun filtered through curtains. Alexander told her about his father who measured worth in dollars. About building an empire to prove something to someone who never saw it. She told him about immigrating at 8, learning English from library books, working 3 jobs while dreaming. They talked until pancakes grew cold. Until Sophia's grandmother shuffled in, raised her eyebrows, smiled, poured coffee. Until vulnerability felt less like weakness and more like bravery. I should go, Alexander finally said, not moving. Or, Sophia said, daring. You could stay. We're ice skating this afternoon. My nephew needs supervision. He thinks he's a hockey player, but skates like a newborn giraffe. Alexander laughed. I haven't skated since I was 12. Perfect. You and my nephew can fall together. It builds character. He should say no. Should create distance. Should return to control. But Alexander ignored all the shoulds. Okay, I'll stay. Sophia's face lit up. And that's how it started. Not with grand gestures, but with pancakes and ice skating, and Alexander learning to be human again. The months that followed were a revelation. Alexander left work early to meet Sophia at the park, texted her random thoughts, learned to cook because she loved trying recipes. He showed up with ingredients, and she laughed until she cried when his pasta turned into edible disaster. But the pasta didn't matter. What mattered was standing in her tiny kitchen, flour everywhere, Sophia's hands guiding his, her laughter warming all his cold places. He met her friends, teachers, nurses, mechanics who measured success in relationships, not reports. They accepted him as Sophia's Alexander, not a millionaire. Sophia started letting him in. She showed him her notebook sketches of her dream cafe where people felt at home, where coffee was excellent but atmosphere better. She showed him her fears, her doubts, the voice saying people like her didn't get dreams like that. Why not? Alexander asked one evening on her fire escape, watching sunset over Brooklyn, her head on his shoulder. Because I'm a housekeeper. I clean penthouses. I don't own them. He pulled back, taking her face in his hands. You're brilliant and brave and you see people. Really see them. That cafe will change lives. I know it. You're biased. I'm honest. And a pretty good businessman. Let me help. Not a handout, an investment. In you. In us. In our future. Tears spilled down her cheeks. You really believe in me. More than I've ever believed in anything. He kissed her, soft and sweet, as the city lights began to twinkle below. 6 months later, they stood before an empty storefront in Brooklyn. The for lease sign still hung crooked in the window, but Sophia was already transforming it in her mind. Her eyes shone with that particular light that comes from seeing a dream take shape in the real world. There, she pointed, her voice trembling with excitement. That's where the counter goes. And tables here by the windows so people can watch the neighborhood wake up. And plants everywhere, hanging plants. Potted plants because plants make spaces feel alive and loved. Alexander watched her. This woman who'd saved him from himself, who'd shown him that the best investment wasn't in stocks or real estate but in people, in love, in the beautiful mess of life. He pulled out his phone and made a call. "What are you doing?" Sophia asked. "Making it happen," he said simply. "Hello, yes. I'm interested in the property on 5th and Park." Sophia grabbed his arm. "Alexander, no, I can't let you." He covered the phone. "You're not letting me do anything. We're partners, remember? You bring the vision and the heart. I bring the business sense and the capital. Together." She searched his face for pity or condescension. Found only respect and love. "Partners," she repeated, letting the words settle into truth. "In business and in life, if you'll have me." The renovation months were chaotic and perfect. Sophia and Alexander worked side by side, painting walls at midnight, choosing furniture that felt right instead of expensive, taste-testing recipes, until they were both caffeinated beyond reason and laughing at everything and nothing. Her family helped, turning it into a neighborhood project. Alexander's business connections smoothed permits and suppliers, but he was careful this was Sophia's dream realized, not his gift imposed. Every choice was hers, every vision honored. On opening day, Sophia stood before Sweet Home Cafe, her cafe, and her hands trembled as she reached for the door. The sign above was hand-painted by her nephew. The menu featured her grandmother's recipes alongside Sophia's creations. Every detail reflected warmth, welcome, authenticity. "Ready?" Alexander asked, standing beside her. "Terrified," she admitted. "What if no one comes? What if they hate it? What if—" He took her hand. "What if it's exactly what this neighborhood needs? What if you change lives the way you changed mine? Stop borrowing trouble, Sophia. Today, we celebrate." The doors opened, and people flooded in. Friends, family, neighbors who'd watched the renovation with curiosity and excitement. The cafe filled with laughter, with the smell of coffee and fresh baking, with life. Alexander watched from the counter as Sophia moved through her space, radiant with joy, stopping to talk with customers, to hear their stories, to make them feel seen. This was her gift, he realized, making people feel like they mattered. She'd done it for him that Christmas Eve, and now she was doing it for an entire community. Hours later, when the initial rush had calmed, Alexander approached her with a bouquet of white daisies. For the owner of the best cafe in New York. Sophia took the flowers, pressing them to her face. "You're biased." "Absolutely," he agreed, but also correct. She set down the flowers and took his hands. "Thank you. For believing in me. For seeing me when I felt invisible. For being invited to dinner by the bravest woman I've ever met," he interrupted. "I should be thanking you, Sophia. You saved my life. I just invited you to tamales. You invited me to be human again." They stood there, holding each other in the cafe that represented everything they'd built together: trust, partnership, love, when Alexander's heart started pounding with a mixture of terror and certainty. This was it, the moment. Now or never. He took a deep breath, and around them, he noticed the cafe gradually growing quiet. Sophia's grandmother caught his eye and nodded, encouraging. Her friends pulled out their phones. Everyone seemed to sense something was about to happen. "Sophia," Alexander began, his voice carrying through the space, strong despite the nervousness underneath. "A year ago, I was sitting alone in a penthouse that cost millions but felt worthless. I had everything money could buy, and nothing that mattered. And you, barely knowing me, invited me to dinner. You offered me something no one else ever had: genuine kindness with no agenda, no expectations. You just saw a lonely human being and thought they deserved better, deserved warmth, deserved connection." Sophia's eyes widened as Alexander slowly got down on one knee. The cafe went silent. Someone gasped. Her grandmother whispered something in Spanish that sounded like "finally, mija, finally." "Since that night," Alexander continued, his voice rougher with emotion, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket, "you've turned my world upside down in the best possible way. You taught me that home isn't a place, it's a person who makes the silence disappear. You showed me that the bravest thing you can do is let someone see your scars and trust them not to run. And you loved me not despite my flaws, my wounds, my walls, but through them. With patience I didn't deserve and grace I'm still learning to accept. He opened the box, revealing a simple, elegant ring that caught the cafe lights. Sophia Martinez, will you spend the rest of your life reminding me what matters? Will you keep making me laugh when I take myself too seriously and calling me out when I'm being impossible? Will you marry me and let me spend every single day trying to deserve the gift of being loved by someone as extraordinary as you? Tears streamed down Sophia's face. The cafe held its collective breath. Somewhere in the background, a phone camera clicked, capturing the moment. Her heart felt too big for her chest, too full, too perfect. "You're proposing to me," she managed through tears and laughter. "In my cafe, on opening day, in front of everyone?" "I am," he said, smiling even as his own eyes glistened. "I know it's not traditional, not some perfect romantic setup, but you're not traditional. You're better. You're real, and I love that about you more than I can say." She laughed through her tears. "You're impossible. Is that a yes?" "Of course it's a yes. You beautiful, frustrating man." She pulled him to his feet and kissed him as the cafe erupted in cheers and applause. Alexander slid the ring onto her finger, and it fit perfectly, like everything about them that should have been wrong but was so incredibly right. "I love you," he said against her lips. "I love you too," she whispered back. "Even when you're being a stubborn, overthinking workaholic. Good to know you love all of me." "Someone has to," she teased, then kissed him again as their friends and family surrounded them with hugs and congratulations. Later, when the celebration had calmed, and they stood together watching snow fall gently outside the cafe windows, the city transforming into a winter wonderland, Sophia leaned into Alexander's warmth, the ring on her finger catching light with every small movement. "A year ago," she said softly, her voice full of wonder, "I was cleaning your penthouse and wondering if I'd ever have my own place. My own life, my own story worth telling. And now I have this cafe, and you, and a future I never let myself imagine because it seemed too big, too impossible for someone like me." "We have a future," Alexander corrected gently, kissing the top of her head, breathing in the scent of her hair mixed with coffee and cinnamon. "And it's going to be messy and wonderful and nothing like I planned, which is exactly, perfectly how it should be. Because the best things in life aren't planned. They're invited in on cold Christmas nights by brave women who refuse to let loneliness win." Outside, the city continued its endless rhythm, but inside Sweet Home Cafe, surrounded by the scent of cinnamon and coffee, wrapped in the warmth of love and community, Alexander and Sophia began writing their next chapter, a story that started with the simplest, bravest act imaginable, one person seeing another's loneliness and refusing to let it win. Because sometimes, the most extraordinary love stories begin not with fireworks and fanfare, but with 5 simple words on a cold Christmas night. "Come, have dinner with me." And sometimes, just sometimes, that's all it takes to change 2 lives forever. What did you think of Sophia and Alexander's journey? Drop a comment below and tell me what moved you most about their story. And on a scale from 0 to 10, how would you rate this tale of unexpected love? Don't forget to subscribe for more heartwarming stories, and check out our other videos for more incredible journeys that prove love can find us in the most unexpected places.